41 years ago today, Kenya's founding father Mzee Jomo Kenyatta died. Kenyatta Taya Kenya, or Swahili for the light of Kenya, was a man who brought the light of independence to Kenya. Indeed, he was a beacon, a rallying point for suffering Kenyans to fight for their rights, justice, and freedom. His brilliance gave strength and aspirations to people beyond the boundaries of Kenya, indeed beyond the shores of Africa. Just as one light shines in total darkness and provides a rallying point, so did Kenyatta become the focus of freedom fight for Kenya over half a century to dispel the darkness and injustice of colonialism. So did Kenyatta suffer the rigors of imprisonment to bring independence to Kenya. As the founding father of Kenya and its undisputed leader, he came to be known as Mzee, Swahili for respected elder. No chronology can adequately reflect the many-sided achievements of Mzee Kenyatta. His life is in the life of Free Kenya Nation chronicled here. There is Kenyatta, the leader who united all races and tribes for the freedom struggle. Kenyatta, the orator who held his listeners' interest. Kenyatta, the journalist who launched the first indigenous paper to voice his people's demands. Kenyatta, the scholar who wrote the first serious study about his people. Kenyatta, the teacher who initiated love for Kenyan culture and heritage. Kenyatta, the farmer who loved his land and urged his people to return to it. Kenyatta, the biographer who documented his suffering without bitterness. Kenyatta, the conservationist who protected Kenya's priceless fauna and flora. Kenyatta, the father figure who showed love and affections on all. Kenyatta, the Democrat who upheld the democratic principle of one man, one vote. Kenyatta, the elder statesman who counseled the other heads of state, and finally Kenyatta, the visionary who had a glorious image of Kenya's future and toiled to realize it. In 1889 to 1895, Kamau Wangengi, popularly known as Kenyatta, is born to Muigai and Wamboi at Ngenda, Gatundu division of Kiambu district. 1909, November, joins Church of Scotland Mission, Dogoto, where he obtains elementary education and carpentry training. In 1912, finishes elementary school and becomes apprentice carpenter. In 1915, works on a sisal farm in Thika under engineer John Cook, who was previously in charge of building program at Dogoto. In 1917, evades forced recruitment as able-bodied Kikuyu by living in Narok, where he works for an Asian contractor, wears Masai belt with Kenyatta written on it. 1918, returns to Nairobi in search of employment, works as a storekeeper for Stephen Ellis, attends church missionary service evening classes. In 1928, accompanies Kikuyu Central Association officials to give evidence to Hilton Young Commission. Daughter Margaret Omboi is born. In May, it starts to edit Kikuyu weekly Mwigidhania, the Reconciler, printed by Asian on the press. In June 18, 1928, presents evidence before a Legico Select Committee on Land Management. Between June and December 1928, travels widely to Kikuyu land in his motorcycle, setting up KCA branches. In 1929, Kikuyu Central Association decides to send him to Britain to present African grievances before colonial office. Indian leader and Legico member Mr. Isha Das collects funds for his trip. In 1929, writes article in English papers, Give Back Our Land, visits Moscow. 1930, writes the colonial office about his fears of arrest on return to Kenya. 1929, writes a letter in the Times and the Manchester Guardian about the unrest in Kenya. 1947, June 1st, becomes the president of Kenya African Union, with a stopping down by junta's Gishuru. 1948 to 1951 tours and lectures around the country condemning idleness, robbery and urges hard work while campaigning for the return of land given to white settlers, calls for independence within 3 years, and the same year Mau Mau freedom fight begins. 1951 May meets British Secretary of State for Colonies James Griffiths to propose a constitution conference before May 1953. 20th October 1953, emergency is declared, arrested under Operation Jock's Court with 182 other African leaders. However, being charged with managing Mau Mau at Kapenguria. 1953 April 8th is sentenced to 7 years hard labor and indefinite restriction thereafter, imprisoned at Lokitang, northwest Kenya. 1959 completes prison sentence at Lokitang and restricted at Lodwar 90 miles south. 1960 public meeting of 25,000 people in Nairobi demands Kenyatta's release. 1960 April 15th, over 1 million signatures for a plea to release Kenyatta are presented to the governor by Nairobi People's Convention Party. On May 14, 1960, he is elected KANU president in absentia. 1961, Kenyatta leads a KANU delegation to Lancaster Conference in London. 1962 leads KANU delegation to Second Lancaster Conference in London. 1963 May 11 to 26th leads KANU to victory at polls. He forms government as Prime Minister on Madaraka Self-Government Day. On June 1st forms a government as Prime Minister on Madaraka Day. August 12th convinces white settlers to work for a free Kenya and to forgive and forget. On December 12th becomes Prime Minister of a free Kenya. Ngina Kenyatta gives birth to son Uhuru Kenyatta. 1964 December 12th, President Jomo Kenyatta becomes President of Kenya. In 1966, he suffers a heart attack. 1968 publishes biography Suffering Without Bitterness. In 1970, January 29th, sworn in as president for the second term. In 1972, June 1st tells a huge rally of threats to his life. In 1974, November 5th, installed as president for the third term. 1977, April, suffers a heart attack again. 1978, August 14th, on 17th anniversary of his release, hosts a family reunion in Mombasa for which his son Peter Mogaria and family fly in from Britain. 1978, August 14th, on 17th anniversary of his release, hosts a family reunion in Mombasa for which his son Peter Mogaria and family fly in from Britain. On August 22, 1978, Jomo Kenyatta dies peacefully in his sleep in presence of Mama Ngina and son Peter Muigai. On August 31st, a state funeral attended by heads of state and royalty to witness the burial of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta in mausoleum in Parliament buildings in Nairobi.